Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. I've been reading the news articles over the past few weeks, and they've just been full of hysteria, fear, and doubt. Here are some examples.
So one headline states the UK could face Italy-style lockdown, warns Boris Johnson. Another reads, manic buying. Brits have spent £1 billion on food in 3 weeks to stockpile at home in coronavirus panic buying. And this image shows an elderly woman going past an aisle which is empty of food. Lastly, this headline reads, the rest of Europe views the UK's coronavirus plan with disbelief. Now, there are many more headlines like this, and they paint a picture almost of a Hollywood movie. In this video, I want to cut through the noise created by journalists and politicians and instead look at what the science says about the virus outbreak. Now, I came across a paper written by scientists at Imperial College London. The paper is used by the UK government to inform their response to the virus outbreak. These scientists have created a computer model of the virus outbreak, and it can help us predict how many people will be infected in the UK and also the effectiveness of different strategies the UK can use. If you want to know the details of the assumptions made in the model in this video, I've linked the paper below. Now, the key conclusions of this paper are: 1. 80% of the UK population will be infected. If left untreated, 500,000 Brits will die. But it's worth noting this is a very unlikely situation. Mitigating the spread of the virus will halve the number of deaths and reduce peak healthcare demand by two-thirds. However, the NHS will still be overwhelmed tenfold. Lastly, suppressing the virus is the only viable method to contain it and will need to be applied until a vaccine has been developed, which won't happen for another year or two. The first graph shows that if the virus is left to run its course without intervention, the number of deaths reached a peak roughly at the end of May 2020. It reaches a peak of about 21 deaths per day per 100 people in the population in the UK, and 500,000 people could die. Now, in the US, the peak death rate is lower, around 17, but 2.2 million people could die. Now, the paper discusses two methods to lower the death rate. The first is called mitigation. Essentially, this is where we try to slow the spread of the virus so we can build immunity to it and therefore save more lives. The next graph shows the effect of various mitigation methods. On the bottom axis, we have time, and the side axis shows essentially the number of critical care beds required. The red line shows NHS's bed capacity right at the bottom. The black line here is the same as before. Now, the green line shows that if we close schools and universities, which has just happened this week, the peak number of deaths is reduced and delayed. The orange line shows that if people stay at home for 7 days, if they have the symptoms, the peak is reduced and delayed further. The yellow line shows that if everybody stays at home for 14 days, if someone is showing the symptoms, then the curve is flattened and delayed further. Lastly, the blue line shows the effect of combining these mitigation measures plus social distancing of over 70s. So overall, these mitigation measures reduce the demand on healthcare by about two-thirds and reduces the number of deaths by a half. However, even in the best blue scenario, the peak is about 10 times higher than the NHS can cope with. So we'll need to take even more extreme measures. The next method to reduce the total number of deaths is called suppression, which, as the name suggests, aims to keep the number of people infected as low as practically possible. Now, again, in this graph, the black line shows what will happen if we do absolutely nothing. The green and yellow lines show what will happen if we combine case isolation, household quarantine, social distancing, and schools and university closures. The blue background shows the time these measures are put in place, which is about 5 months. Now, the number of people infected is significantly reduced. So I've zoomed into the graph here, and you can see that the green line is below the NHS's bed capacity. So it seems like we've won. However, the model shows that as soon as we lift these restrictions, the virus spreads because not enough people would have developed immunity. So all we've achieved is delaying the peak later. So as a result, we'll have to stay in lockdown until scientists develop a vaccine, and the best estimate is that this is at least 12 to 18 months away. Alternatively, we could turn the suppression measures on and off like a switch, so that the peak stays within the NHS's bed capacity. Now, the blue line here shows the suppression measures being turned on and off, And when the number of critical cases starts to rise, the suppression measures will be turned on to lower the number of critical cases below the NHS's bed capacity. And this will be repeated until a vaccine is developed nationwide. So social distancing would need to be enforced about 2/3 of the time until a vaccine is developed. In this scenario, the number of deaths will be in the tens of thousands, 10 times less than if we did nothing. So to conclude, mitigation measures will not be enough. In the most optimistic case, the NHS will be overloaded tenfold. Now, this leaves adaptive suppression techniques as the only viable strategy. This level of public health intervention has never happened before. The social and economic effects of this will be profound, and how populations and societies respond is very unclear. So if you found this video valuable, don't forget to like it, and please subscribe for more videos like this. Thank you for listening.